Hey, Chris. Attempting to start a new stream on my phone, and hopefully this goes a little bit better than on the computer. Somehow the internet has just been so horrible today. Even before the stream started, it was pretty bad. And then we had issues with the pre-order page, but hoping that a few of you guys can jump over from the main stream to this stream, and I can hopefully answer your questions because like in worst case, I will give you guys my email. You guys email me your phone number and I will call you and I will answer your questions personally. I'm going to try to get the link to this stream. Awesome. Great. Glad to hear at least something is working today. People are starting to order. I'm excited. I'm going to go ahead. Yeah, if I can confirm, if I can get a few people over here, I will go over to very close to the router and hopefully, yeah, Andy's working on the issue. I think he fixed it. I think everything's running right now. Awesome. So glad you, at least a few of you guys hung in there. I appreciate that. And yeah, like I said, we're going to answer every question. I don't know for what reason. Maybe it's my cache data, but it's setting my currency to USD, even though I'm in Canada. So that is, sorry, sorry about that. I'm answering one question, and I'm answering one question on the other stream. Yes, we will have a tapped mount point, but we'll be using magnets to actually mount them. We were originally going to offer the air assist as an add-on, but essentially we just chose to include it in the actual in every order.
Oh, you got the live stream working?
Yeah, I just started a new one. People are, if I sent you the link, would you be able to? Oh, actually, I could send it to myself.
I got the product page to work. We're
Yeah,
getting the pre-orders now.
people started talking about
Oh my
it.
god, so many things happening at
I
once.
know, right?
Isn't that insane?
We made it.
Hi, everyone.
Andy, how do you feel?
How do I feel about
Out of
what?
all the times launching a product,
Yeah, this is probably like the smoothest it's ever gone.
I imagine.
Yeah.
Awesome. I'll talk to you later, Chris.
I think I'm gonna throw up sometime.
Haven't slept in about 48 hours, but I'm feeling good. And I will stay on the stream for as long as it takes to answer every single one of your questions. And if I miss any, I'll try to leave my email so that you guys can contact me directly. And even we could just hop on the phone and hopefully bring some clarity to some people who are trying to make a decision here. So what I would recommend is starting out with the G2 lens. Sorry, let me grab your name. Josh. Josh, what I would recommend is starting with the default lens that's going to be included with your long mill, which is the G2 lens, because it's good for engraving, but it's also good for cutting. So let me explain the sale price. So essentially, we are including the safety goggles for all pre-orders. So we wanted to incentivize people to kind of order before, which helps us kind of dial in our supply chain and our inventory, and hopefully it will lower the lead times in the long run. So instead of charging $60 for the safety goggles, like it will be on the regular product when we have all the inventory in and we're shipping, we decided to offer it as kind of essentially like a discount, because the whole laser is a bundle, and if you're essentially getting the $60 laser for free. So the 3-element lens is the only lens that's not glass. So you're actually dealing with other elements in the lens. So it's a clever name, right? 3-element. It is probably the least efficient, but it is very easy to focus. That's a great question, Josh. So what you can actually do is you can include step downs. Sorry about that. You can actually include Z step downs when you're actually running a project. So let's say you're doing a 6 millimeter plywood. Every so just based off my experience, at 100% power, you're essentially cutting 1 millimeter every pass. So you have to do about 6 passes to cut 6 millimeters. So every pass, the lens essentially gets out of focus by 1 millimeter, and then you can set your Z step down to 1 millimeter so that every time it cuts 1 millimeter down, it essentially lowers the Z and you're back in focus, giving you optimal power throughout the whole job. So yes, normally if you're just engraving, then you're not dealing with any Z axis movement at all. So yeah, for the sale price, it's just we're including the safety goggles for free. The safety goggles will cost $60. They're actually quite expensive, and very similar to the Makita. We're not really marking it up too high because it is something that is kind of a necessity. So you don't have to actually purchase the safety goggles from us, but I did go through pretty comprehensive tests, and I can take you through what we actually did here for testing the laser and how we actually chose our supplier here. So we did run through quite a few different laser goggle manufacturers, and we kind of settled on the one that we did out of pure just quantitative quality. So you can actually see here, we shot the laser directly into the safety goggles. So what this is a laser power beater. So you have a little sensor right here that essentially can measure the amount of power in milliwatts or watts that is actually being produced by the laser. So what we do is what I did for the testing is we took a benchmark of what the laser can produce, and it ranges between 8 watts to about 7 when you're at about 4.5 amps, which is kind of how high you want to get with your amperage for longevity. So although you could crank it higher and essentially get higher wattage out of your laser, you don't want to do that. These qualities are high quality, but they like to be in a nice temperature range, and cranking the amperage that high will essentially burn it out quicker. So if I would recommend 4.5 amps, which produces about 7 to 8 watts. And yeah, so we actually pushed, we took that benchmark, and then we just started. It's pretty simple. We would put the goggles over the sensor. We would fire the laser directly at the sensor, and we'd see how much power actually gets picked up by the meter, which is essentially the power that would be hitting your eyes in a direct hit. So nobody in real life is going to take a direct laser hit to the eyeballs, but I wanted to test for the worst case scenario, right? So the worst case scenario, is you do get hit in the eye with either refracting beams or a direct beam, and I wanted to be able to be comfortable saying that no matter what happens in your shop, your eyes will be protected. And that is like the bare minimum for me. Yeah, I'm a pretty young guy, and yeah, I plan on having these eyes for quite a while. So I can actually take you through. So I have some pretty extensive testing, and hopefully, yeah, no problem at all. Cause I also, so just so you guys know I'm for real, I currently use the same goggles that we will be shipping out. So, if I go blind in the next, before your laser ships out, then you know that we were full of, what. But that's how much I trust it. That's why I tested them so extensively, because I know that I would be using them as well.
You want me to hold your camera for you?
Oh yeah, sure.
Smile. Gotta make some memories, right?
Yeah, right. So people are asking what the difference is between the lenses. So I want to give them kind of a real world example, and you can see even though that the 3-element lens is the least efficient out of the lens, you can see what a 3-element lens does for your engraving versus let's say something like the G2 lens. So this isn't a perfect representation of what the lenses can do, but what it is a representation is that it's much easier to focus the 3-element lens when you're actually operating your laser. So you can see that these two codes or these two G codes are the exact same, but you can see that you get much tighter lines in here versus here you do get a bit of bleed through, and that might just be that is most likely because of such a high efficiency. You're dealing with way more power that's actually hitting your material. So then it becomes easier for things to come out of alignment in terms of vibrations, maybe your material itself, and things happen there. Whereas like the 3-element is a very simple lens. It's easy. I would call it dummy proof, essentially. So if you're looking for specifics, like you want to be able to cut like a Baltic birch, you want to be able to make signs, things like that, then I would go for the G2 lens for your cutting capabilities. But if you're doing super detailed engraving, let's say you're making a gift for a family member, you're taking a picture from a family vacation, and you want to engrave that, you might want to look into the G7 and the 3-element because that really is very good engraving. So you can see some of the other testing. And like I said, not all of them are perfect, but you can kind of see the relative quality that you're going to get with the lenses. So these are all G2 lenses, and these are just different suppliers. And you can see that even when the code remains the same, you can still get different results. So you can see here that this was G2 supplier 2. Yeah, so if you're just looking to engrave, I would go with the G7 and the 3-element to start. I think that would be a good place to start. Yeah, the 3-element is very simple to focus. I can take you in a little bit. I could take you guys through how to focus the lens. It does get a bit tricky, but once you do it once, you'll never forget how to do it. So I actually did have some trouble focusing the lens in the very beginning, and I'll show you what that looks like, so you guys can kind of keep an eye on what an unfocused laser looks like.
You want me to hold the camera for you? And
Yeah, sure.
might make it a little easier.
Yeah. So you can see here that we have the laser out of focus. You can kind of tell when the text gets really small here, you can barely read this, and it is the same code as something like this on this side, where you can still read it even at its smallest font. And it's always good to have a quick little file that you can run to make sure that everything is working well, everything looks good, and before you end up running a 2-hour long job. You also can have things like you also just have general errors here because I see like things like this where you set one image processing type but you end up getting another. It's very rare with a software with like Lightburn, but it can still happen. So you do want to kind of be aware of that. So here you can see the different processing types. So you can see the Jarvising type here. You get a lot of detail here. You can see the dithering type. So it does do better in certain situations in terms of your contrast. You can kind of see that the long mill doesn't look as good here. But you can see here, you get the real detail. Even with the control box and the small image, you can kind of still see it. So I wouldn't focus too much on the lens per se, unless you're looking to cut. You're gonna have different focal lengths with the lenses. So you can see here, and the lenses will include these focal length finders, which makes it very easy to find your focal length. It's just a simple measuring tool. You move your z-axis to that point, you set your 0, and then you focus the lens from there. So we do have that available for each lens, but I can show you the difference between a G2 lens and a G7 lens. So you can see this is the focal length of a G2 lens, and this is the focal length of a G7 lens. So essentially what you're getting is you're getting a much wider focal length, which is gonna essentially help you or cause issues when dealing with large or thin materials, right? So if I was using a very thick block of wood, although I might want to use a G7 lens for engraving, I think you're going to end up using a G2 lens because you're limited by how far your Z-axis can travel, right? So if you have a really big block of wood, you can only, you want the smallest focal length so that you have that adjustment, even if you want to switch out the lenses. Are we getting some questions?
Yeah, you can see the
I
questions
went
right
on a
there.
super long tangent, guys. I apologize.
And we'll probably make more resources on like what you want to do with each lens. You have
Yeah.
all the testing data so people can compare and try to figure out exactly what they want to use, right? So
Exactly. So it's going to be a personal preference. I asked everybody in the shop, and everybody has a different opinion on what they think looks the best. So
Right.
I'm sure all of our customers are going to have that opinion.
Yeah.
So I think our best case is just to show off what you can do with each lens, and you're going to naturally gravitate towards one. But I think I'm very happy that we're providing the G2 lens as our default lens, because I think you're gonna have some fun starting off with that. And even if you might not want to cut some things, I think it's good to learn how to cut some things, because it does teach you a lot about dialing in the settings. Where engraving can be very simple, and if it's too dark, you can raise the power or lower the speed, or vice versa, kind of inversely. But when you're actually cutting, you have to pay attention to number of passes, your Z step down, your power setting, and your speed. All that can contribute to the quality of your job. Like something like this we see here, this happens when you're just running it too low speed or too high power. And like I said, they are related inversely. So if you wanted to lower power, you can also raise speed, and you can use a balance of both of those functions in order to get rid of markings like this, but still be able to engrave and cut the same exact job. Yeah, so cutting leather is actually pretty, or engraving leather is actually pretty cool. It engraves really nicely, but cutting does become a safety hazard because leather tends to deform and crinkle as it heats up. And when you're dealing with the laser, you're in focus at one point. And what I saw was that the leather tends to curl up, and then your laser then becomes extremely out of focus. And not only out of focus, you're at high risk of starting a fire. So I definitely want to say be careful with leather. Same thing with cardboard, because it's such a light material. You always want to underestimate your cardboard engraving. So that's exactly what I did. So your first cutting of cardboard might end up being way too light, but that's okay. That's what you want. You don't want to overestimate and then end up lighting a piece of cardboard on fire, and now like me, you got a big burn mark on your wasteboard. But that's fine. You can always flatten it, and you're good to go. Let's see. Oh wow, looks like we have almost 40 pre-orders. That's great. Yeah, so I am going to be your laser guy. So if you need support, you call us, and I've probably already spoken to a lot of you guys with your long mill support. In the beginning, it will just be me kind of answering your questions, doing the support, because I do want to enter the psyche of our customer, and I want to anticipate your wants. I want to anticipate your needs. I want to anticipate the answers that I need to know to help you guys progress forward. And then vice versa, as you guys use the long mill, as you guys get it and start testing, just like the long mill, you guys will eventually become so advanced that you'll start helping each other in the community, and that's exactly what we're looking for. Yeah, the three element and the G7 is a good combo. Take a look at. So here's a perfect example of a job that is slightly out of focus. So let me find one that's in focus.